Welcome to Galactic Grandmother Heart to Heart. My name is April, and my special guest today is Martin Rivera. Martin is a QHHT practitioner. That is Quantum Healing Hypnosis Therapy. He is on the East Coast, and I first heard about him from Jen Sullivan when I interviewed her. She's an author of a couple of books about her past life regressions that she actually heard about through QHHT with another practitioner. But she had rave reviews about you and in particular, I believe it's a meditation that she uses for her relaxation. And I'm so happy to have you here. Welcome, Martin.
Thank you so much for the invitation, April.
For our audience, how did you ever get into quantum healing hypnosis therapy? It's really a super interesting subject, I think.
Indeed, it is, and I could just recall briefly, I was growing up in Mexico City, and I belong to the generation where way back into 1991, we had a solar eclipse right in the middle of the day, and it was probably like between 2 and 2:30.
Mm-hmm.
So imagine, Mexico City is like, it's now the third largest city, you know, in the world. So it's like very, very, very similar to New York City. And think about that, like New York City and a solar eclipse in the middle of the day.
Wow. Yeah.
So I was very young, and then I remember I was on the roof of the apartments where I used to live, and then I remember, observing the eclipse, exactly where is happening. It's only like between a minute that you can really look directly,
Uh-huh.
not before, no after, because
Uh-huh.
otherwise you might get retina damage. So I was able to observe it, and then all of a sudden we saw that we spat this object, and we all were surprised because it wasn't a star, it wasn't a planet, and it was very close, compared to any celestial body. And we were all dumbfounded about, what was all about that. So that was the first sign, really, on this wave of UFO sightings in Mexico City. So that was like a mind blowing for me. I was like probably 13, 14-year old, and then that really questioned my beliefs, my life, and all of that, and all of above. So I had a really awakening back then. So I was always interested about history and, of course, metaphysics, and I had, really, really like awkward or weird situations where books came in, through my hands, so people and all that. So that really, you know, pushed me into this direction. And I suffered from depression back then since I was a teenager, and gastritis and all this, stress and like I said, depression that really questioned my, even I had suicidal thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
So that made me question, because I wanted to go into study psychology, part of like trying to figure it out what was wrong with myself. But somehow, I had a really tough time with my family and all that. So that, pushed me into this direction to the holistic world, really, because I didn't believe in
Right.
pills and all that, the conventional treatment. So,
Mm-hmm.
and that's how it pushed me into this direction until I discovered Dolores Cannon in 2010, when she was presenting her book, The Three Waves of Volunteers and the New Earth. And when I watched it, that resonated a lot with myself, and that's actually how I started, and I devoured, her books and all that, and I decided to join. So that's, a long story short, that was my kind of a journey.
And I think that's how so many of us get in this path is looking for answers.
Yes.
So you were in Mexico, and then how did you end up in
I
the United States?
I moved, it was strangely because I didn't know anyone who lived in the US. No, neither family members, no one really, until I met a guy when I used to be working, studying and working. I was like 19 years old, 19, 20 years old. And I met this guy, and we, we get along. We become really good friends. And he told me, I used to live in New York for like 5 years, and I wanted to go back. So he was the one who invited me to come over. So I was like, yeah, why not? I want to take a break. And when I came to Long Island, I was like, oh my God, this is so good. And the ocean is next,
Mhm.
everywhere. So somehow I feel this energy that it really matches what I really need. And that's how I start my inner healing journey. Of course, I went to retreats and all that, but that's how I moved into the US. And I loved it, you know.
And then, as you were on your in your own self-discovery, and you said going to retreat, did some of your physical issues and your depression and so forth start to dissipate?
Of course, it was like a process really.
Yeah.
And the one that I really took my 180 degrees. I remember in Mount Shasta retreat with some of my colleagues, and some of them are from Australia, really. And
Uh-huh.
they're the ones who invited me over to this, like really small. There were only like 13 people they invited over. It wasn't like really open to the public, but
Mhm.
they invited me over. Later on, it was revealed why. So anyway, in that retreat, they did this kind of hypnosis, like different technique from Australia, really.
Uh-huh.
And that really, it was like a 7-day retreat. We have vegan food, and we were meditating by yourself. We use these vibrational sounds and this therapeutic light they use with frequencies that I later acquired because I had such amazing experience with that. Of course, that was my really start discovering all these past lives, all what I was, releasing from all this trauma that I had and mistreated, all these nuts that was like in my family. So I start, assembling all this puzzle, what am I supposed to be doing here? What is my life purpose? So that really, when I discovered that part of myself, I rise above this duality,
Mhm.
and I was like, yes, I get it. I know why I suffer so much. And I understood. And that set the path of what I'm doing right now, which is helping other people too.
And now your energy, you're just like a bright light.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I get so excited, for
Mhm.
being in the darkness to be on the opposite part that I really appreciate and I really value every single day of my life, and every people
Mhm.
that I get to meet, is like amazing.
Now, I know that you did some sessions on your sister, and
Yes.
you got some very special information through those sessions. Can you
Yes,
talk about that?
yes, that's for the first time people we heard, oh well, that's her, his family. Well, let me tell you, my sister, she was ill for like over 15 years with fibromyalgia. So this self-immune disease is like a really, pain on the joints and muscles.
Mhm.
And then she was treated for, many doctors, many hospitals.
Mhm.
And plus that, she was an active member of the Jehovah Witnesses religion. So
Uh-huh.
she was one of those ladies who knock at your door and preach the word and all that. So when I was doing my journey, my inner journey and all that, she noticed the change that I did, from being very depressed and negative, from being the person that I am right now. So she was like, "What are you doing?" I wanted to know. So that's how we start, this conversation back and forth. And of course, she was in Mexico. I was in the US already. So anyway, somehow I asked her, why don't you just try this? You try everything else, what the conventional medicine told you about, and ha- has it worked for you? And she goes, well, not really. It's like, why don't you just, give yourself the opportunity to try something different? And she agreed. So that's how she started. So she did 2 sessions with a colleague of mine, of course, because she first thought that because we were related, she didn't supposed to do it with me. But then she goes like, you know what? I didn't know, so I don't care. So I want to do a session with you now. And the session was because, and the petition was because she was pregnant with 8 weeks. And of course, by being exposed for many years of medications, and of course, and let alone that she had an accident when she was like 19, 20 year old, and she had an injury on her womb. And doctors say you're never gonna bear a child, let
Mm.
alone all the medications that you're having. So anyway, she was concerned about that, and she asked me about it. Like, I want to do a session because I want to make sure how the baby is, if the baby is going to be okay. When in the gestation of 8 weeks, you don't know about the sex, whether it's a girl or it's a boy. So that's how we start the session. That's how
And
she
did
agrees.
you go to Mexico or did she come to the US?
She came to the U.S. Actually. She already moved. Like she had like 2 years already. She got married. She changed her life completely. She did almost the same journey, like 180 degrees. Because her illnesses, her job. So she quit everything and she moved to the U.S. And she changed and she got married. One of my best friends.
And and is she still a Jehovah's Witness?
No, she wanted to have those approaches, but I guess she doesn't resonate anymore. But she loves the community and all that. But
Yeah.
she's not like speaking aloud. What happened to her because people in the U.S. doesn't know her. People, on her community back then, even doctors asked her about how she was doing, and she overcame everything. She had a baby. They could not believe it.
Wow.
you
So
know.
so tell us about that session. You went into it because she was concerned for her
Baby.
pregnancy,
Yes.
and was it a surprise what happened?
Oh, okay. So here we go. All right. So bear with me. So I'm gonna try to make it more shorter, but I'm gonna highlight what happened. So anyway, so we start the session, right? So she already meditated, from the past sessions. She already a regular meditator and all that. So that gives the advance, so you can go under
Mhm.
really good, really easy.
Yeah.
And anyway, in our protocol, she even was hypnotized even way before, because the way I was setting up is like I use singing bowls, or these 5 sets of singing bowls that you guys see here. So sometimes I use them, for people who
Uh-huh.
struggle to concentrate. So anyway, I was like playing the singing bowls, and I had the recorder because the whole session is recorded. And I wasn't ready. I was on my knees really, because she was laying on these yoga mats, because I had the set of 5 sets of singing bowls. So
Uh-huh.
and she got really quick under. So I was like unprepared. I was on my knees, and I didn't set up the recorder. So anyway, I stood, part of the session on my knees. So anyway, because I want to refer to this later, because that's a really good detail that you guys gonna be surprised. So anyway, she goes under and she starts describing herself as um, you know a child, between 8 and 9 year old, and she was laying on this bridge, sitting on her arms crossed and observing like a stream of water coming out of the mountain and goes into this body of water. And she started looking at herself and she started describing herself, like her physical appearance, and then her dress. And all of a sudden this carriage comes along, with horses. And then she goes like, oh, that's my dad, that's my father. And I remember he even mentioned his name is Tarjan. And he described him like this kind of like a round, small hat, kind of like the Middle Easterns they wear, like the Turkish region, you
Oh,
know,
yeah.
and these shoes like I don't know, like pointy upwards.
Yeah.
I guess they call babushas or something like that. So anyway, he was describing him, and she goes like, well, he's yelling at me because he's gonna take me to these teachers or magicians. She goes like, teachers or magicians, okay. And she goes like, but I don't want to go. I want to stay here. And she goes like, okay, I'll go. So I was like, don't worry, we make sure you're okay. So anyway, I condensed time. So And when the time she arrived to this place, she started describing this big house with gardens, beautiful, and then she goes like, it looks like a temple, and there's like these steps going upwards, and this, and there they are, the teachers, the magicians, and she started speaking like a child, remember we're speaking like 8, 9 year old. And then all of a sudden she goes like, I was like, can you describe me the way they look? And she goes like, well, they have these like brown dark robes with figures on it, like moons, numbers, stars. And they said, they wave at me, they say like, you have to let me go. And I was like, yeah, sure, and could you ask him, if I asked her like, could you ask them if can we make a couple questions out of curiosity? What do you guys teach, And she goes like, well, they say they observing you, and they say you must, sit down comfortably because we're gonna have a conversation. I was like, okay. you know, I got chills down my spine, but good chills, not about fear, but out of
Uh-huh. Yeah.
surprise and happiness, like, wow, this is gonna be good. So anyway, they go, okay. He goes like, yeah, his name is Dermilak, and then he's happy because to see you again. And he goes like, oh, really? Oh, yeah. Okay. So can you tell us what kind of knowledge you guys teach? And he goes like, well, he said like they have the knowledge of the word,
Of the world.
yeah, and
Or-
they know astronomy and all this science. All
Wow.
right. I was like, okay. So, and I ask again, like, can you ask him if he knows anything about healing? And he goes like, well, he's very happy to see you because you were his student. And you must remember. And he goes like, this is not a temple. This is not a house. This is a mothership. I was like, okay. So that's how it started the session. And of course, and our dynamic of the QHHT is like a conversation, back and forth questions, and we follow the lead, from whatever the person is experiencing or reporting back to us. But in
Uh-huh.
this case, she was saying all the time, he said this, he said that. So I was like, because we know, we can, instead of like doing this three-way conversation, I was like, can you tell Dermy like he can speak through you? And she goes like, no, he said like, this is the way it must be done in a three-way conversation.
Huh.
Okay, that's fine then. So anyway, so we started this conversation, right? And and I make up a question, but then all of a sudden I start hearing that he wants to like just to hear him, he
Uh-huh.
wants to speak, whatever he was the message, to transmit to either like actually like three parts. One, it was message from my sister, there was a message for myself, and of course what was happening back then. Remember this session, it was like in March 1st, 2018. All
Oh,
right. Okay.
yeah.
So that was before the pandemic, right?
Right. Right. Before the lockdown
Exactly. It was 2020, but that this was 2018. So here we go. I'm gonna read
years then.
these
Yeah.
parts because I don't want to, miss parts that I consider really important. So here we go. He goes like, okay, I'm asking. So can you tell me, I asked, can you tell me, what time lapse are you guys in right now? Because I was speaking to a little child. She doesn't know. And he goes like, well, he said, as at the rising of the Ottoman Empire, and that was in Azerbaijan. He had, to tell me later. But you shouldn't worry because they don't belong to this world. They came to build this temple with a mission to this world. And I asked, what is the mission? And the answer was to set future life. Yes, he said that this is a mothership. He said, and I asked him, like, what are you guys coming from? And the reply was, he said, over the clouds between Saturn and Jupiter, where they are setting up this mission. And I asked it, are you coming from another dimension? And he said that he's in another dimension, but you call this meeting. I was like, did I call this meeting? And he goes like, you should trust yourself. And of course, that part of myself. Remember, we have this higher self or this soul too, that sometimes does agreements or meetings without the conscious mind knowing.
Right. Right.
All right. So this pretty much, explained like that. And then and he goes, they had always been here on earth. He said that in every generation, they had contact people, so humanity's path doesn't change course. He says that there are many who they taught, but they forgot, and it is time to remember. He said that we must build bridges because the day is coming. He said that we should irradiate more love because the day is getting closer. And I was like, what day are you referring to? He said, the hidden snakes are coming out to damage the earth. The reptilians, it's time to protect the earth. And he goes again, he said, in that mothership, they gave us gifts, and we all should be united to help people. No one is more, no one is less. The galaxies are like people. We should find a way to be unified, that they are like dimensions. There's energy among us, and we must classify, codify it. And he goes again, quoting, the world is sick in this moment, but in the same way is going to get healed, unquote, and quoting, we will make a protection network, and that's why we were sent here. We were sent here not to forget, but to heal the planet.
Mm-hmm.
All right. And he goes again, he said that there are currently 200,000, over 200,000 star seeds ever since Earth was created. And he goes like, and I asked like, so why did they were seated by their own free will? And he goes like, no. He said that the guardians were afraid of this really strange name. It goes like Strapatosh or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
She repeated like 3 times. And he goes like, because their free will wasn't good for Earth, but it's part of the cosmic plan. And he said, don't ask if it's unnecessary, because I asked, what does that mean? That really weird name. I was like, is that a race or something? And he goes like, don't ask, it is unnecessary. Languages sometimes helps and sometimes make confusion. But he wants to be clever. We are a link made of energy to protect. We were clouds, minerals, fire, animals, and our evolution is to protect, because every light, we had a purpose for it in order to understand life in this planet. And every time we touch a bacteria or light, we can feel what it is, the same, at the same way we recover health for this planet. But he says that he mentioned about the crystals within ourselves are very important to irradiate light into the earth, but it should be as a chain. He said there's energy kept within our minds, and very few know how to activate, because the world have layers. Thus, every layer will be free. It's like a seed getting sprout, and as the sprout, it's a seed pushing layers, and our crystals are the seeds pushing through our past lives. And he's telling you that he will tell others, just as you are here listening. He's talking to others too, that others are coming in their way, the ones who evolve as well. And my question was like, he finished the quoting, right? And my question following was like, what are those evolved ones? And the answer was, well, they're just getting born. And I was like, that really hit me, the question, are the ones Dolores Cannon referring to as the waves of volunteers? And he goes, yes, they are the last wave. And I have one coming. That part was like very shocking. I'm sorry, guys, I could not share the recording because it's in Spanish. But you could tell in the audio, how she changed her voice, like very surprisingly in that part. She said, like, uh, um, uh, the last word, they are the last word, and he goes, and I have one comment, and she expresses that surprise, and he goes like, and he goes like, there are more coming like him. That's why the chain must be irradiate energy. And again, quoting, strong changes are coming in the atmosphere, extreme weather, because change within human beings is taking place. And it's like a painful bird. We are entering in a dimension change, unquoting.
Mhm.
And he goes again. So just that's the last paragraph. He goes like, quoting, we are organisms exchanging energy to grow anywhere we are, and they are out there protecting this change. We can't interfere any longer because everything it's a learn from the world or a learn process for the world. We cannot change everything fast because it won't be as God's plan, as the Creator's plan, and the Universe Council plan, unquote.
It's a learning lesson, and it's something we have to go through in order to birth this new higher consciousness.
Exactly. So I went through, I studied more the message, and of course, there's a symbiotic exchange between humans' consciousness and the earth consciousness,
Uh-huh. Yeah.
and that pretty much affect
Right.
the weather pattern
Mhm.
and all these phenomena that that we've seen so far. But in my case, I kind of like validated that this knowledge that we have before when I was studying all this through my sister, like even the message through Dermilac about the symbiotic relationship that we have with Mother Earth. So that
Uh,
was mind blowing for me, let alone about, their extraterrestrials and all that. But that's something that we must be aware and raise consciousness of people, behavior. And of course, everything begins from our thoughts.
right. We create our own reality.
Exactly, April. So, yes.
And so it sounds like your sister gave birth to a boy.
And of course, later on, he explained briefly, he said his soul is a boy. And I was shocked when I heard that because I was like, so what are we supposed to teach him? Or is he going to teach us to do something? And he goes like, well, he has his own gifts
Uh-huh.
and he will continue what you guys started.
Wonderful.
I was like, okay.
Yeah.
And another clue that he gave us, we were you know, 2018, it was the second year of, President Trump, right?
Uh,
And he
uh,
goes like, then this president won't last. Just like another clue to, years to come that was like
uh,
corroborating that
uh-huh.
information in case if I got
Wow.
doubts about it or my skeptical mind kick in, that was another clue, you know?
So the information was validated, in other words.
Exactly. And of course, he had a baby boy and of course there were other events that, in advance I could tell you that, there was a second session 4 years later. Many things happens between those years. But I guess for we could set up for another session.
Oh,
That was the first session that I really want to expose and and transmit this message for whoever resonates with.
uh-huh. That it's important for people to expand their awareness that, this is not all there is here in the three,
Exactly.
and that there's higher intelligence out there that's
Yes.
working with us and working for us. And just like here on planet Earth, there's good and bad.
Exactly. We live in this polarity that is for something, for a learning process, really, for young souls or experimenting into this planet, really, because the whole universe, there are many schools out there. And we already explored those schools before coming to Earth.
Mhm. Yeah. Wow. So interesting. And we've got so much more to go, huh? I'm going to have to get you back for a part two.
Sure, yeah.
And Thank you so much. I appreciate it. I think that you've really been, this time has flown by. You've been
It
so
is, right?
entertaining. Yeah. So I'm
Sure.
going to say thank you, Martin, and we will see you for part 2.
That will be my pleasure, April, and thank you so much, for you and your audience.
All righty. Bye-bye.
See you soon.